Out and about, spending a sunny day over in Shepparton. I'm catching up firstly with Johnny Neweberry. Firstly, Johnny, welcome.
Thank you very much, Paul.
Where exactly are we? Bumbartha, Munduna? How far out of Shep are we?
16 k's. So it's sort of that they call it here. You can call it Bumbartha, Munduna, Karimba. It's sort of a little bit of a triangle, and it comes up on anything on posters, on the post sort of thing.
Any of the I suppose older people wondering exactly where it is? It's the old Karimia Farms, and fair bit of history in us, including these boxes just behind us, isn't there?
There is, yes. Ross, and his father or whatever they did, Ross Simpson, they brought it all up here when they set up here back a number of years ago, and funnily enough, it was we actually lived. Actually, I was in Rockbank a couple of years, for a couple of years back in the 70s, and actually late 70s, early 80s, something around about that. And this particular stables that are here were over the road from where I was, because I was actually in Leeks Road as well.
And they transported them. Actually here to talk about Nordic Reign, a little 2-year-old that won at Bendigo the other day, but just quickly, yourself and Maree were showing me then the flood waters and the flood levels, and it's a massive eye-opener, and it would be to anyone, I reckon, that comes now, because there's not much water sort of laying around anywhere, but must have been a scary experience. But were you overwhelmed by the support that you gave?
Very much. We got a lot of help from Shep Club and like Ian Ian down there, McDonald down there as well, and they all sort of rallied around, and the people that came in here to sort of help and do what they could. They couldn't. You couldn't really get in here because once the place filled up, it was it sat here for the best part of 2 to 3 months. So the road outside and both ways was actually closed for probably at least 3 months at least.
So flat when you're driving here, because I know it was what I was looking at, because I remember it, and then you have this valley, if you like, between where the trotting track is and where your stable are. So I suppose that water finds the lowest point, and that was probably your biggest problem. But even just the water, it must have been so slow coming across. It must have been I suppose an eerie sort of time to be around.
Yeah, it was. It came in sort of from up the road, and it just we heard it was flooding down the road down there. So we thought, we go down and have a little bit of a look, Maree and I. And anyway, as we drove up the road there, all of a sudden we could see it coming down the road at us. So we thought, well, gee whiskers. So we thought we'd better get back here as fast as we could. We picked up everything that we could. We weren't quite sure how high it was going to get, and we stuck it on drums and all sorts of things, like rigged round bales and all sorts of things, feed, all the feed we had here, bales of hay up on top of the container, and anyway, just to prepare sort of thing best we could. So we got it up pretty good, and it came up a long way, like out the front of the stable here. It sort of was just sitting on the ground, and then it sort of stopped there, and it didn't get any further from there.
I know I was talking to a gentleman in New South Wales. They had similar floods, Phil Thurston, I couldn't think of his name, and he tells me about the time where he got up in the middle of the night. He could hear the water. He actually went outside to relieve himself, and he saw the water, and he decided, well, if it gets any higher, we're in all sorts, and he actually went back to bed. Did you sort of have that moment where it was just like, well, we're sort of...
No. It was very slow. Like I grew up in Clevedon in New Zealand, and the farm we had there, it had a river that went right around it. And I tell you what, when it flooded, I tell you what, you knew about it, like it was just roared, Yeah. But so it was nothing like that. And it was just sort of slowly, just sort of coming up, and then you could just quietly just see it just filling up the place. But then then it just stopped, and yeah, that was it.
3 months sitting around Clevedon and those places, they're very different. As a Kiwi, how long have you been in Australia for?
On and off, probably most of my life. I came over here back as I said, I was in Rockbank for a couple of years when I was around about 22. And then went back over New Zealand, then was over there for a while again. Then we headed, the father and uncle, they had a bit of a split up, and we headed for Queensland. And so I was up in Rockbank for the best part of about probably about 12 years, something like that, 12, 14 years. Went back to New Zealand for a little while, come back here again. So yeah, it's been on and off, I guess. But over the years, I've probably spent more time in Australia than I've spent in New Zealand.
You call yourself an Aussie?
Well, I do. I've got Australian citizenship.
That's okay. We'll claim that. We have enough Kiwis watch this show. Always in harness racing?
When I gave up school, parents had a dairy farm, and so I milked cows for a little while. Didn't like that much, and then they got. I was actually they actually started in horses when I was around 12 years old.
Yep.
So so like virtually it's been the whole of my life virtually. You'd have to say.
How old are you?
Coming up 65.
You still love it?
Yeah, I still love it. Yeah, I'm still doing it.
Yeah,
yeah. Got to wonder sometimes, but no, that's not going to do anything else now. That's for sure.
Well, I ask that question of a lot of people, but it's an honest question because I think sometimes we do get up. I'm sure, like a year ago when the water was lapping up, there'd be days where you're thinking, geez, should we be doing this or shouldn't we be doing it? But there is something about this sport that is really cool, isn't there?
There is, like you're always looking for that next good horse, and for me, it's been a little while since we had one as good as a couple that we've had over the years. Like a couple of the Bryden horses we had, like Kel Bryden, that's the horse I brought over here way back that time ago, and because he won a Dominion handicap and that, he was a real top horse, and then I had Bryden Duke in Queensland. He won somewhere around about 51, 52 races, and went round and had good results in some of the bigger races. So we've had some pretty handy horses over the time, and just waiting for the next good one. But with a little bit of luck, we might have a nice one coming up.
We'll talk about her in a sec. How many do you work?
We're working around the 10, 12.
Yep.
It keeps Maree busy. Maree and I are busy.
Yeah, and she keeps you going, and there's no problems there. She's a very passionate person too, so I suppose that makes it a little bit easier when the pair of you really enjoy the industry.
Oh, that's right. Without Maree, giving me a hand and backing me up all the time, it'd be pretty hard.
Yeah. You got some weanlings out in the paddock. How many you breed a year?
On and off. It's we'd had a couple of years there we didn't hardly have anything, and we had one and it died, and it was a lovely horse out of a mare called Are You Gypsy, and she's a nice Christian Cullen mare, but we didn't have much luck with her, so we gave her back to the people that actually bred her. Like this year we've got 6, and previous year we had 5. So, we've got them coming on.
Right. Nordic Reign. It was quite funny because she's by Volstead, so I do a lot of the video work for Harassed Trotters with heelings. I actually thought she was a Harassed Trotters horse, but she's not. She's bred by Glenn Craven and his partner, his wife whose name has just totally left me altogether, but they bred her and prepared her and sent her through the APG sales. Yeah. How'd you come to, I suppose, decide you're going to buy her, and why do you go, like you've got so many, why do you go out looking for other horses? Yeah, well, she actually belongs to Troy Walker. Now, Troy, there's a bit of a story that goes there, because when I went to Rockbank all those years ago, the track that we actually bought Bill Davies' place way back in those days, and the track needed a little bit of work because he hadn't used it for a little while. And over the fence, working in Joe Sacco's property, was Des Walker. And he was actually had a grader, and he did fair, like he was sort of truck driver. He's in the Hall of Fame, truck driver and all sorts, and Desi. And anyway, he had a grader, and he was over there grading up Joe's track. And anyway, so I wandered on over and I climbed the fence and I went and had a talk with him, and from there on it just, we just sort of gelled as friends, Des and myself and his wife Julie, and Troy. He was around about 4 at the time, and so we've been, great friends, right from that time, like Des and his Julie and the boys, they came to Maree and my wedding and
so forth up in Queensland and that, so like we've been friends, forever, so it's over 40 years now. So
That's a great story.
Yeah, so anyway, so Troy, he's dabbled in horses, and he's been sort of trying to get into a few more. He's been in the bloodstock, bloodstock horses, and they've had some luck winning some races, and he's had some bad luck with 4 of the ones that they've had actually have had to be put down or whatever. So that actually 18 Carat was the latest over in West Australia, because she won Group 1 race and then over there. Yeah. And Anyway, so Troy said to me, he said, I want something of my own. So he said, and I want a broodmare. He said, can you buy me can we get a decent broodmare from New Zealand? And I said, I think we're better off going to the sale, I said, and buying something that's, that's already a year old. And I said, that way, you're shortcutting a little bit, because you got something might turn out all right, and then we're looking for something that really had some breeding. Yep. And so anyway, and I said, I think we're better off buying a trotter rather than, getting into the trotting side of it rather than the pacing side of it, because, it's a little, if you get a nice trotter, it's better than I think a pacer sort of thing. So anyway, so he went with that, and we went off to the sale, and so she was one that we had picked out, so she was the first one we bought, and then we bought another one by Majestic Sun, and she shows ability as well, but at this stage just need a little bit more time.
Not about the punt. Is she as good as Nordic Reign?
Well, at this stage you can't say, but she did show, like in patches, she showed she can go. Yeah. So we'll keep our fingers crossed that that's the case too.
Nordic Reign. I gave it was a false start. Did you cause the false start? I was watching the replay. I didn't watch it live, but Lockie McIntosh made mention of the second time around, so there was a false start?
Yes, she was going up behind the gate. She'd never done anything wrong at the trials, as normal. And Matthew, his son, he was driving her, and Matt, he said the gate was just going a little bit slow. I think something out the back was just playing up a little bit. And they might have been just waiting slightly for it. And so she got up there, and she just got a little bit sort of out of coordination sort of thing, and lost her balance sort of thing, and just went into a gallop. Yeah.
But the second time around, you go and watch the replay. If you don't hear Lockie saying that beforehand, you just say what a professional horse, and it really was. I mean, Chris Alford came pretty quick, solidly quick for 2-year-old trotters. I mean, it wasn't ridiculous. Yeah. With a lap to go, she took the sit. She still knew to go back up the sprint lane the next lap. Did it exceed your expectations on how professional she was and the ability she showed?
She showed she'd been fairly sensible right through. And I think with the Volsteads, they seem to be reasonably, level-headed. So, and she's a lovely trotter. So, I wasn't that worried, but I didn't. At the same time, we weren't looking, we were hoping that wasn't going to happen either.
She's an APG graduate. What's in store for her? What have you got? She'll be Vic Bred eligible, I would imagine.
She is. She'll be looking at the Vic Bred. We possibly put her around this coming Thursday, because there's nothing else for her until the end of August, until the Abrahams race here at Shep, and that's about a week, I think, before the Vic Bred heats. Yeah.
And then there's a race called the Redwood. I mean, pie in the sky stuff. But would that be on their radar with her, or you?
No, I wasn't looking at the Redwood. I thought, well, she's got enough to worry about, because if we look at these the Abrahams race and then the Vic Bred, well, then you've got rolls into the Breeders' Crown. So I think that's probably enough for her for a 2-year-old.
Oh, absolutely. I think so. I think it was a pretty good form race. I mean, there was a lot. It was, I think, the first 5 home were all having their first start, but on their breeding, the horse of Chris's is out of Starkers, who's done a great job. I'm trying to think who. Pretty Peggy Sue. There was one in there. I can't think of who ran third actually in the race, but there's some really well-bred horses. I personally, I could be wrong, but I think it's going to be a pretty good form race going forward.
Yeah, I think so, because if you also went through it and had a look at all the trials and that they all had a little bit of trial form. So they'd won at the trials and done fairly well and done things right. So no, it was a pretty good sort of form race, I thought.
John, thank you. Good to have a chat. You didn't even know I was coming. I've been doing some other stuff, and I just thought, well, I'll just give a ring. I wasn't even sure where you lived, and I thought, you're not that far away, so I do really appreciate it. We might do a bit more. I've done one with Johnny McLean too. I'd love to sit down and find out a little bit more of your history, that New Zealand and back to Queensland, and find out a few more of your tales. So thank you. Congratulations on the win. Hopefully with Nordic Reign there's plenty more to come. Thank you very much for giving me a bit of time.
Thank you very much, Paul. That was a pleasure, yeah.
Thank you.